What's up guys, Tommy Bowyer here from Movie Rewind, and what Batman villains need a big screen film adaptation? Well, today I'm going to name my top 5, so without further ado, let's get into it. After Spider-Man, Batman is probably my second favourite superhero, and that's not so much because of Batman himself, it's because his rogues gallery is excellent. Batman has a very impressive rogues gallery, it's very large, it's very varied, and I've always loved some of the villains in that rogues gallery. And of course some of them, like Joker, Penguin and Riddler for example, are massive names. Joker himself has been portrayed by numerous actors throughout the years. However, today I thought I would dedicate this list to villains who have not had a big screen live action film adaptation. Now, I want to have a couple of cautions before we get into the ranking. Firstly, these are all based solely on my opinion. I am biased, just like everyone. So you may not agree with all the options on this list, but that's fine. Opinion's good. Secondly, I'm only including villains who have not had a big screen live action film adaptation. So if the villains on this list have appeared in TV shows or video games, they have not appeared in a feature film, so they are still included on this list. But that also means that villains, for example, Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze, who both appeared in Batman and Robin, I would love to see those characters in future films done correctly, but because they were included in Batman and Robin, they are excluded from this list specifically. And thirdly, please feel free to let me know what your personal choices are. What villains would you like to see on the big screen fighting Batman, or maybe even in a solo film of their own? Please feel free to let me know. Now all that's out of the way, let's get on with the ranking. At number 5, I have put Firefly. Now, Firefly is not exactly a major Batman villain, but I've always loved this character. His design is usually really cool. If they were going to take inspiration from anything, I would actually say the early 2000s, The Batman TV show, the Firefly in that was very funny. Plus, I think Firefly would provide a challenge for Batman. He's a villain with a difference. He's an arsonist, he can fly. So I think that he would be able to challenge Batman in numerous ways. Now, I wouldn't say that Firefly would be the main villain of the film, but I think as a side villain, he would provide a lot of fun, a lot of entertainment, and I'd love to see Firefly fight Batman on the big screen. I think it would look really cool. Clayface is a villain I would love to see on the big screen, purely because in terms of creativity, they could do a lot with Clayface. I think effects-wise, it could be really strong. If they get the CGI correct, Clayface is a villain that could really be brought to life on the big screen. I think they could go a lot with this terrifying villain. Plus, if you want Batman to do detective work as well, Clayface is a good villain to do that because, of course, he's a shape changer. So that could be Batman trying to figure out where Clayface is and what his plan is. So I think that could work really well. Clayface is one of those villains which hasn't been included in Batman films because they do try and tame it. I couldn't have seen Clayface in the Dark Knight trilogy because, of course, he wouldn't have suited that realistic universe. But I feel like if they could get the universe correct and have Clayface in, I think he'd be a great villain because not only effects-wise would he be amazing, I think he'd be a very terrifying presence as well. Coming in third place, the middle of the ranking, is Dr. Hugo Strange. Now, I think if you had a darker Batman film, a film in which Batman is tested both physically and mentally, maybe even a psychological thriller, I think that Doctor Strange would be a great villain to use for that. He's one of the few villains who has discovered that Bruce Wayne is Batman. I feel like that could provide a lot of tension there. Plus, from the Arkham City game, I think that Hugo Strange really has shown that he's a formidable villain who really has the willpower to test Batman physically and mentally. Now, if they did go with Hugo Strange in a film, I can see him in a film with other villains as well, maybe in charge of a couple of more minor villains, such as Firefly, for example. But I think if you wanted a darker Batman film, which really does push Batman to his limits, Hugo Strange would be a great villain for that. So keep that in mind. The runner-up in this list is, of course, Man-Bat, one of my favourite Batman villains. I've always thought the design of this character is really great in terms of the actual idea of this character, the quite tragic backstory that this villain has. I think that works really, really well. If you wanted a horror type of Batman film, I feel like Man-Bat would be the perfect villain to be in that, of course. I think on the big screen in live action, they could really bring out a terrifying incarnation of Man-Bat. They could also make it quite tragic as well, in the sense that Dr. Langstrom just wanted to cure his deafness. He didn't want to become a monster, so I feel like they could work with that concept as well. Plus, of course, he can fly. He's super strong. I feel like he'd challenge Batman both physically and mentally as well, figuring out how to take him down and how to save Langstrom from his own demise. So yeah, I think Man-Bat would be an excellent addition. If you want a darker, more horror type Batman film, Man-Bat would be perfect for that. And in first place, a villain I would love to see brought to life on the big screen to face Batman more than any other villain is, of course, Killer Croc. Now, I know some of you are going to say, wait a minute, Killer Croc has already had a live action appearance in Suicide Squad. Well, that adaptation of Killer Croc was so bad, I've kind of blocked it from my memory. Plus, that version of Killer Croc never actually went up against Batman, so I'm not specifically wrong. Of course, some of you probably think I'm a liar. That is perfectly fine. I've cheated a bit. But for me, Arkham Asylum's adaptation of Killer Croc will always be the best version they've done. They created such a ferocious and powerful villain in that video game, and I think taking inspiration from that adaptation to the big screen would work really, really well. Killer Croc, I can see having a very terrifying design on the big screen, and if you get the correct actor to portray him, I think it would work really well. I don't know why, but in my head I have Willem Dafoe. For some reason I just think Willem Dafoe would be really good as Killer Croc. I don't know why, that's just a casting idea I've got in my head all of a sudden. I think that Killer Croc would be an amazing villain to go up against Batman, one which could really push him to the limits, of course, because he would be fearful of being killed and eaten by Killer Croc. So I think that would work really, really well. Honestly, out of all the choices I've picked, the majority of them actually appear in the Arkham series. So why don't we just have a live action Batman Arkham Asylum and be done with it? Actually, that's not a bad idea. Someone should make that. I think that would be really cool. So thanks for watching, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe in order to receive great and maybe even improved quality content in the future. And of course, please let me know what villains you would like to see brought to life on the big screen. Obviously, there are loads to choose from, so please feel free to let me know, and I will see you in another one. See ya!